Welcome to Center Hice Productions. It is December 15th, 2023. This is part 3 of our ongoing series due to some misquotes and evaluations by some panelists on certain podcasts. And some of them were people we respect, but we don't agree that they're evaluating our team appropriately. So first, could you please hit the like, subscribe down in the right-hand corner? Actually appreciate that. And thank you to my supporters. And please, if you haven't hit the subscribe, hit it, please. We're trying to build an integral podcast. We're different than others. We have respect for several of them. But we're giving you an angle that's always going to be an honest view of our club, where we stand. And we're in the rebuild. So this is addressing where we stand in the rebuild. We've hit what needed to be done, which was Josh Anderson and accountability. That was part 1 that needs to be addressed immediately. And then part 2 was the debate over needing and who could be a first line and what does Montreal have. So go to that episode and you'll see my answer to that. We don't have it. So this is part 3. Now we're focusing on the coaching staff evaluation. So we have not, like some in that respect, and there's a couple of them that I respect. I've said this too, and I disagree totally. We have not turned a corner. We're a little bit behind. Stats prove it when you see where we are compared to last year. We should be slightly ahead. We're not. Now, injuries affected that. I would think that there's a couple of things that have addressed the same thing. I think parts of our coaching has affected it a bit too. It should have progressed, but it shows you whether your coaches are qualified. Now, we're going to start with Marty. Marty easily is the one guy that is guaranteed to pass. He's got a refreshing view, brings a different aspect, and brings an elite look to our team. And he backs this team very well. I like that. And he gives you a straight up, for the most part, answers. He doesn't dodge. So I give him a lot of credit, and this is what makes him easily passable. And I think he would be a 5 out of 5 if he had 2 more ingredients, which I think could also be affected by his assistant coaches. Just not having experienced enough ones to back him where he's a bit inexperienced. So I think that the only reason I take 2 points off is because his assistant coaches that he does have don't assist him enough in the 2 areas of accountability versus culture. Yes, he's got kind of half of culture good, but he's got to be careful because of what we talked about in the first episode. If you don't treat every player the same, and that means your veterans too, that's where he's lacking. Why Josh is getting away running like loose with no accountability is beyond me. And I know there's got to be something there. I've discussed this with a few people. There's got to be something. Josh must be a great teammate. And I heard, and I feel bad for Josh Anderson, but he needs a fresh start. It doesn't work here in Montreal. And the coach, that's where I think Marty has to change his view. You can like a guy as much as you want. You got to hold him to the same standard that you held Slav, Jack-Eye, and other players too. And it seems to be a veteran thing versus younger players, and I don't agree with it. If your veterans aren't playing up to par, you wanted the culture to be right. You've got to make them sit out games when the time comes in. And Josh Anderson should have sat out many games by now. Bottom dollar. You can like him as much and feel bad as we all feel that way. But John Tortorella has been right. And, like I said, I know Josh is struggling. And I feel bad for him. It looks like he's going to break down and cry. But it is what it is. And I've been in Josh's corner when he's worked hard. Last 3 games, he slipped back into that groove where he was. He's had a few games through the season that way where he slips. Or his effort doesn't even stand up to it. And, he said he's given his best. I have to disagree with him. And I think that falls on Marty because Marty has to be able to tell him, no, Josh, we had several games where you were working your tush off. That I can back you. But when you're not working your tush off, you got to be sad. And I'm sorry, the last 2 to 3 games were a perfect example of he slipped back down. When Jack Hice no longer here, Josh Anderson's the first guy who should be taking up that slack. He's a big boy. The rest of his game's not working. Do that much. Defend your teammates. And maybe your gloves got to come off a little bit more when your teammates are abused. I would love what I seen out of David Savard when Montembeault did get tripped. He stood up for his. He was the one guy who stood up for Montembeault. I love. This is what I love about David Savard. There's a lot of qualities there. He might be slow, but he's got a lot of qualities. That's why I'm fearful of trading him because he's been the one guy who's been the most consistent, and he's been the one veteran who, leadership-wise, is. I'm afraid that he's the best guy, quality-wise, for being an example to that young defense. So this should be the year you're able to. I don't know if you can. So we go with that, and that's what knocks Marty down to. He's definitely easy pass 3 out of 5. He could be a 4 or 5 easily if he had. I think if he had the proper assistant coaches and gets over this hump that he starts treating his veterans equally to the youngsters, easily would become a 5. So he's got the qualities, and I think that will come with. I think his inexperiences is why he slips because of those 2 areas of he's introduced accountability, but he hasn't followed it through completely because the vets have not had to follow suit under this regime for accountability. They seem to have a preference, and I don't buy it for culture. So that's where I take 2 points off Marty. But he's a pass. I think he'll be great when we're there at that point where he takes them to different levels. We haven't turned the corner yet. We will. We are expected to, I should say. This trade deadline and this summer draft and free agency will tell the tale because this is when we, from management standpoint, we need to make a couple big moves to change the trajectory of where this team is headed. If you actually want to be able to say you turn a corner, that's when you will turn a corner, and you'll have more expectation of the coaching staff as you do the players. This is why I'm addressing this. So then, Lithkowski's next guy up. This is easy. I'm just going to make it simple. He's a pass. He seems to be the one experienced guy back there that gives Marty that little bit of experience that we need. He seems to be a good board for Marty to bounce off of. So I give him a pass at a 3 as well. Then we go to the next 2 guys. This is where we see trouble. And I've already addressed what I thought of Burroughs enough over and over and over and over that he fails. I understand the argument. He has no talent to work with. However, it doesn't give him a pass. So I gave him 2 points because there's no talent on this team. Like we're 3rd and 4th liners, what I'm addressing. So he doesn't have the talent level to make that power play work the best. He doesn't have much to work with. So I gave him 2 points for that. But he's a fail. He's a 2 out of 5. He needs to go. He didn't have the experience when he was brought in. That's number 1. Did he need to? Can that be changed down the road if he goes to be an assistant in a lower league with somebody and learns more things? Maybe. But right as of now, no. He came up to the NHL too quickly. He does not show enough signs. Wayne Gretzky was a perfect example of that when he was in Phoenix or Arizona. I think they were Phoenix then, though. But he didn't have the caliber either for his special teams, but he couldn't coach either. So there are some great players. Doesn't mean you can coach. So I'm sorry. Alex Burrows, I'm not going to harp on it a lot here, needs to move on. You need a guy brought in. I'd love to see Vinny now be able to free up and come behind the bench. I think that would be a great asset. I think that'd be a great asset for our centers and our power play. Also, you got another choice there. You need somebody with with experience that is proven. Guy Carbonell, perfect example. Now, Gabe proved he could coach this and had the best special teams when he was coach with the power play and the penalty kill. He's proven. So that's your other guy that you could go to. And I'm sure if we would get over our pride, he'd gladly come back to help his team that he loved so dearly and do that for them. He would help. Again, he was great in the circle. He was great on the power play, knew how to run it, knew how to coach it. He was great on the penalty kill, knew how to play it, knew how to run it as a coach. Perfect choice. So you got choices, and you need to upgrade. So that's what you need to look for, that type of level. Or unfortunately, Joel Quenneville is not passed yet. Uh, to be back in the league coaching, from what I understand, because he's another great choice if you get him involved. So you got to move on. In the summertime, his contract's up. Move on. Get somebody else in, and that's also the time when your management's supposed to make some changes to make this team turn a corner, and they'll have much higher. You can follow through with your higher expectations. Then we go to the defensive coach, and this is our other issue. It was great. He was able to rim shot it last year with his defense. They basically did whatever the hell they wanted. No, they didn't play under technically a system. They were just, let's see what you got, and it looked more like it was man for man, and that's fine. But now you're introducing systems, and it looks like Robitaille tried to introduce systems, and this has made us fall off the board defensively much more, and that's on the way it's communicated and taught. Uh, and it also drags our offensive coaches into it because our offensive players are playing in the defensive zone incorrectly as well. They're part of the problem. There's an overall zone problem, not staying to your man or your zone, because you can take that player up that's in your zone, right? Very simple. What we're doing, and that's why I'm bothered. I'm really troubled with Matheson and Gooley, because these guys we know have way more talent than the entire rest of our defensive core. We know that. But Matheson's been doing it for a while, where that's his weakness to his game. Goldie didn't have that, but now he's fallen into it. He's looking an awful lot like Matheson, where since he's been with Barron, he's falling into it and making mistakes he wasn't making. So why are all of the defense are falling into this? And I'd say David Savard falls into it the least. He seems to be the one guy that is better at this than all of them. So I commend him. Next, Struble, for a kid that's just been brought up, I give him number 2. He's doing very well for a kid that was just brought in. You almost have to keep him in place until something changes. And then 3 is Kaseva, just the next third guy you can rely on. But the fails in the defensive coverage right now, Barron's horrendous for cough-ups. And yes, I know he's improved his game. I can agree with people to that degree, but he hasn't fixed his cough-ups. And he's got a lot of them. And I find him and Matheson on the power play time, they're one of the two will lose that puck, and you get an odd man break. That's got to change, and that's why I say we got the wrong personnel on our power plays. Because I think if these guys are coughing it up, then you need to be looking at different components to put at that point. So that, to me, Barron's the worst one for it, and then Matheson and Gooley are right there as well. Gooley can get himself out of this and go back to the way he was playing originally, but I think you got to separate him and Barron. It's not working, and Barron's dragging him down, and he's getting into bad habits. But these guys are crossing over when they're in their own zone, and the forwards are doing it too, where you're getting defense. You get Matheson going over because, let's just say, at the time he had Kasevich or Barron with him earlier, a few games back, and he'll cross over because he doesn't have faith in his defenseman. Problem is, he's just left this whole zone open. Now there's a guy that's free on that side because he wouldn't let his partner do his job. Goulie's doing the same thing. Uh, Struble does it sometimes because, like I said, everybody's in it. And Barron does it. And David Savard does it the least. That's why I commend him. But we got our forwards. So let's just, I'm still sticking with that example you got now. Let's just say you're chasing an opponent. Barron hasn't caught his man, but it is his man. Matheson has come over to take over and get that, trying to get that puck. Then we also end up seeing a lot of cases where a forward jumps into that. So you end up with three guys on one player. It's not working because you now have left two opponents free. So if the puck squirts out at any point, you ain't got a man there to be there to receive it. They do. And you're with your two line mates. You're out of position. This has to be corrected. People have to pick up their zone and their man that's in that zone. And one on one, you can't keep having guys try to, guys got to be accountable for the player they're on, like in their zone. And you can't be trying to make up for your teammate. He's got to have some accountability and be able to handle it because otherwise you're leaving a player open. So this has got to change right across the board. So I do think it's partially the offensive coach has got, the coach has got to work on that as well. With his forwards, this has got to change. Stick to your man at the points and in the slot. That's your offense's job. Let the guys that are in the corners be your defense's job. But stop trying to outnumber. Once you go into trying to outnumber one man on their team, that puck squirts out by any accidentally, and it does a lot because that's how we get burnt. It always squirts out to an opponent, and that would stop that bleeding if we would stay on the player our players should be on. And it bothers me when I see a veteran like Matheson do it because he's got so much talent and his game. He could be better defensively if he would stop doing that alone. He's got the effort. I'm not knocking him for effort. Same with Goulet. And Goulet, I don't know why he started doing it, but it's got to change. Like that dumb bonehead play the other night of coming up in front of the net when you got Sidney Crosby chasing you. You don't go in front of the net, and Crosby tricked him into that. You got to know that as a defenseman, the main guidelines that you got to follow. Sorry. And Barron, that's got to be worked on in his game, and that's why I say a rotation to some of these guys going down to the AHL and back and forth. I don't have a problem with it because I don't think Jack Hice the only guy that needs to improve his game. I think Barron needs to improve his game. I even think Goulet needs to improve his game. I don't think Harris does when he comes back. And Struble will too. I'm sure of it. I'm sure we've only seen him on the ice minimal time. And Matheson, he's not going to get sent there because he's a veteran, but it wouldn't hurt him. But he can't because of the cap issue. I get that. So that would be the problem with sending Matheson. But truthfully, while you can with the rest of them, do it. Because I think they all need to have specifics that they got to work on their game a bit. And, just because Matheson and Goulet are the most talented, they're not utilizing it enough. And in their own zone, they're getting killed. And Barron, sorry, yeah, he's improving, but he's not on. He's got to get rid of this cough up thing. It's got to go. It's got to be corrected in this game. So, Robitaille, it's looking to me like there's a communication issue. And again, he was brought up, in my opinion, too soon. Maybe if he was down with an organization in the lower levels, junior, AHL, and gaining more experience there, maybe it would be different. At this point, he should have never been brought in just green behind ears the way he is. There's something communication-wise that's not working since he's introduced zone coverage. I'm sorry. He gets a 2. He fails. He has to be changed. You need somebody like again, I know I'm reaching, Larry Robinson type, and maybe a younger version. I'm not saying him exactly because he's not going to come. I don't think. He's already refused. But if you could get somebody of that caliber and the experience for the defense, like a Luke Richardson, someone in that type of range, you need it. There has to be a change made, and that should be done. His contract comes up in the summer too. Perfect time to do it. you turn the corner, then there's higher expectations following the season, and you get somebody who can coach zone coverage or communicate it properly with their defense, because this is not working. And I would expected us to be, at least 3 to 6 points ahead of what we were last year, and we're not. So there's a communication breakdown, and all of our defense is looking subject to it. That tells me it's not getting through. So sorry, Robitaille, you get a fail. And that's where I think the Habs need to address it and get some experience with those positions when they replace them that can assist Marty properly. Because that penalty kill doesn't work either, Robitaille, and I understand he's in charge of that. And we've got like one of the worst penalty kills in the league. So something's not working. Not everybody can coach. So he fails at a 2 as well. Then we get our goaltending. I only put the goaltending coach at a 3 because we're not at that point yet where we have the right goalies in the system, that are going to lead our team in the future. And this guy seems to be doing okay. Our problem seems to be up high, but our goaltenders are playing from their knees too much. Every last one of them, except Montembeault and Allen, can catch with the trapper. They can also use their blocker a bit, but they get burned over the shoulders. All three of them do. Caden Primo can't catch and can't use his blocker. So when it starts going high, he really suffers. So that is a concern. Doesn't have to be addressed yet, or is it the caliber of our goalie? I mean, for me, someone like a Patrick Roy would be a perfect candidate to work with your goalies when the time is right. But to turn the corner, this needs to be addressed. And then they can also say to Marty and take some of the heat off his back, because he seems to be carrying a lot of it, and say, no, we got to make everybody accountable equally. Us and the veterans have to be equal to the youngsters. So, with that being said, where's the puck drop? First, here at Center Hice Productions, thank you for joining me. Hit the likes and subscribes, muchly appreciated. I'll try to get 150 likes. Tell your friends and family, pass it on. We're trying to make an integral channel here that comes out with you with the actual facts as far as honest evaluations. I'm not going to just try to puff up about, if people don't know as much about the game, just puff up my Habs just for the sake of it. If they're weak, I'm going to be honest and tell you where they're weak. And that's what we need to focus on. And the facts, when a trade is actually going to happen, I'm not going to just jump on every reporter, because there's a lot of false rumors put out. I will more stick to when I hear Kent Hughes come out with something. That's what we should be doing. We shouldn't be aiding to falsehoods to get views. I won't stoop to that. So the next, I will add one episode. It's going to be a shorter one, because it'll just, where we don't need as much to say about our defense and our goaltending. Very minimal. I'll put a fourth part to this series. Just going to be a shorter one. This one was what we needed to address now, but we'll address that in the fourth episode. And thank you for joining me. We'll catch you on the next one. Or, you know what, if I get the next episode out before the game, fine. If I don't, I will be also reviewing tomorrow night, Saturday night's game against the Islanders. Thank you for joining me. God bless.